The unfair advantage. Okie dokes, episode 4 of the new series of Unfair Advantage. What a lekker jaw we're going to have today, because we have someone special in the room. Kelvin Jonck, please, can you do the intros?
Yeah. Oh, Kelvin is someone special.
Yes.
We have been threatening a guest. So we're very lucky. Annalize van Deijl, the head of CRM at Mr. D, has agreed to come and join us in our offices. She has the wall of honor behind her. Annalize, our second favorite person in the industry, working at our favorite delivery app company. I have to say second because everybody else listening won't be offended, because then they get to believe that they are number one.
Right. So we won't say who's number one.
No, exactly. No.
Yeah, hi, Kelvin. Hi, Don. Thank you. I'm very excited.
Thank you for being here. And the first guest on our new series, which is super exciting. Before I kick off, I just want to actually just give a bit of props. Annalize, it sounds like you are either just love doing lots of things or you get bored very easily, because you have, I stalked you, attained a Bachelor of Fine Arts for film, video, and script writing, and everything you need to be Steven Spielberg. Then you studied marketing management. Then you did part-time paramedics work while you were studying marketing in the finance sector. Then you decided to jump on a couple of airplanes and go to 50 different countries as cabin crew for Emirates, then doing the marketing for Emirates as well. Then you came back to South Africa because Dubai was cuck, and then you did stuff for CX agencies, Estee Lauder, and now with Mr. D, you have had a bit of a jaw over the last 5 years.
Yeah, it sounds really impressive when you just like read through it like that. But I think it's taken me a long time to go through all those. But I do get bored very easily. But I think the adventure of it all, it's always exciting. And I have a little bit of a thing for stories. You know, what are people's stories? What is the story of the brand? What is the story of that company? What is the story of the country or the language or so there is a golden thread in there somewhere.
Nice. And I think all of those experiences bring a lot of perspective. I think from a CRM perspective, bring it back to what you're doing now, like understanding people and how people operate. There's value underneath that, right? So yeah, you're a champion. Well done. Well done. So listen, we could talk about all this stuff for hours, and one day we will have a couple of glasses vein, and I want to find out about all of your travels and things. But for now, we only have 15 minutes or 12 minutes, 20 to be exact. So let's get into it. Recently, Kelvin sent out a newsletter talking about this tech paradox and things quite difficult when buying technology, thinking about technologies, adding technology to platform, to businesses. And this seemed to strike a chord with a couple of people, including yourself, when we had a couple of conversations. So I'm keen to dig into that, if you're cool for that.
Absolutely. I mean, the newsletter itself, I read it, and sometimes it's the content, but it's also the context where you're like, okay, I'm not alone, you know, okay, this is a reality across the board. We're all struggling with the same things. So yeah, I think it's an extremely interesting space to be in, tech in general, and like all the innovation that's happening around data, but especially how do you use that in a brand building tone to reach your customer with the right message at the right time, you know, that whole kind of spiel. So yeah, I'm quite excited to cover some of the topics today.
Awesome. So on that, what is your experience in having these shiny toys being thrown at you, trying to run a business or run an area in a business with these toys just in front of you? And, you know, how do you take that on? What is your journey?
I mean, look, I'm a MarTech nerd, so I love shiny new toys. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic if people throw things at me that I'm not paying for out of my pocket, and I can just see what other companies are doing, what other tools have that maybe, you know, the ones that you're used to don't have, what's new in the market. But unfortunately, the reality is shininess doesn't equal value from the business context. And I think the mistake that is made is we all fall for the temptation, almost like something looks like out of the box, it's going to solve all your problems. But I think that before you kind of fall for the beautiful dashboards and the sales pitch that's going to, you know, answer all your questions, and it's just a plug and play, you don't need anything, don't worry. You do have to look at like almost an internal readiness for the company. So you have to check, okay, who who are the people that's going to be using this tool? Who are the people that's supporting? What are the processes that's going to happen? What is it that we actually want this tool to do, and how are we going to report and track success? And then obviously you've got that, like, as with any sort of technology, you've got that tech and the data enablement layer, and whoever's involved with that also has to play a supporting function for whoever's going to be adopting the tool, educating them, etc. And that collaboration, it needs to be prepped, because you're talking about a cross-departmental collaboration, and it's like the onboarding of a tool is way more resource expensive than it is finances expensive. And I think that I've oftentimes I've been part of like conversations where either you've got the objective of let's just try it and see what happens, versus, oh no, this is going to solve all our problems, versus, okay, no, this has actually been done well. And you oftentimes do feel like you've just purchased a Ferrari, but the organization only has like a learner's license. Yeah. So yeah, I think that shininess doesn't equal value is the key take out there.
Yeah, it's so interesting the way you talk about it, because, you know, I personally been watching, both in my role in corporate and then in the role in YOUKNOW, been watching cycles of tech buying and tech ownership and tech management. And it was tech was owned by IT, and then marketing started owning MarTech. And then IT battled to come and own it back. And then data appeared, and then they wanted to, and we're at that stage now, the way you've said it, is that you have to be, you know, have a single vision and work as a team, and different teams working together to actually make this tech work properly. There is no singular ownership anymore in departments. So one of the cooler movements that I've been seeing as well, and that I've been quite excited by, is this move to bring more customer experience management specifically. So managing of those customer journeys and the messaging and all that into integrated platforms. So orchestration and experimentation, data management, all those things that you've mentioned from a departmental layer is being consolidated into tech these days. Have you seen that? I mean, I think you have. I know we've spoken about some of the things that you guys have implemented, but what have you seen in that regard?
Yeah, no, I think it's extremely exciting, because with data, with a lot of data comes a lot of opportunity. And I think that as a customer, as like someone who receives communication, and someone that's at the receiving end of paid media ads and abandoned cart notifications and user journeys that might or might not be relevant to you at a specific point in time, we are becoming more savvy in terms of, okay, I looked at something and now I'm being followed around by it, you know, kind of like we are getting quite smart as a consumer about how we get targeted, which kind of makes it a non-negotiable to have a central feed that covers holistically all the touch points. Because again, you're kind of imitating a face-to-face relationship, but you're using digital touch points to do it. And if all of the different channels are speaking a different language, it's just jarring for the customer, isn't it? Like it's visible, and they're quite, I think, yeah, they're just starting to notice it more and more. So what these, especially the CEP tools, which is the majority of my experience, of course, what they enable us to do is to kind of solidify a holistic, what is it that we want the consumer to do? Where is it that we want to lead them to? How do we want to nurture them down this journey? And it's very much behavioral influence. It's not a shove, it's a nudge. And you can't assume that they don't interact with other touch points that you might not have. So there's a lot of facets to it, and it's quite complex, but I think it is a non-negotiable. So whatever channels you can unify into one platform, you have to, because then you just kind of get closer to, you know, having a central view of the customer, and to be able to tap into that for personalization at scale and customization at scale and experimentation at scale, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very interesting shift, I think. And what makes these tools powerful is they're always trying to connect more tools and more platforms, and to get as much of an integrated approach as possible, which for a person communicating with the customer just makes the potential for that nudge or that behavioral influence so much more effective.
Yeah, I love it. It's not a shove, it's a nudge, right? Because sometimes we feel like, oh, if we can just push them into the, just give them then they'll do what we need them to do.
Maybe this time the email will work.
Yes. The 17th one, guys. That's the winner. That's the winner. So, Annalize, what is the best way or the easiest way to get this done, to have this integrated view? It's because it sounds complicated, right? Especially when you work in larger companies, multiple KPI silos. We see things from a tech perspective. So of course we think, yeah, the tech is going to help, but we also know there's other stuff around it. But you're seeing it on the daily. What's the easiest way to get this done?
I think that's my favorite question. The interesting thing that I see happening, and the key word out of this little thing would be proactiveness. I think when an organization does identify the need for a unification, let's say, and it doesn't necessarily know what tool it's going to use or necessarily how it's going to get there, then definitely get in firstly the person that's going to be responsible for driving that Ferrari, and before you go into the sales pitches, because what the sales team is always very good at is giving you the ideal world, and it looks fantastic and it's going to solve all your problems, and it definitely can. These tools are potent. But it all depends on how you integrate it. And then you already have, so the company's going to buy into the tool. They're going to already assign your engineers and your data team. Marketing's going to have a thing. You've got all these powerful stakeholders, all these brainiacs around one table, but you're missing the key element, and that's who's going to drive the Ferrari, right? And then when you end up like reactively getting that person in, then everything becomes a bit of like, now we don't have that event, or maybe we need to integrate this, and then you're always on the back foot. So proactiveness is definitely the key. I think that in terms of how to align all the stakeholders and how to know where you're going, if you've got the driver of the Ferrari, then you have to speak to like the various teams that's involved, and it becomes quite easy if you make, it's not on purpose that I'm going to use customer, because it's, CRM and CEP, it's all got like customer in the title. So it's a dead giveaway. But if you make the customer your absolute north, like true north on your compass, the objectives and the metrics that you're going to use to track those objectives kind of fall into place, and then all the stakeholders are aligned. And it's not like the entire organization now has to follow CRM. No, it's just that in terms of how we're going to integrate it and how we're going to use it, just becomes much clearer. And then proactively, you can just, there's never going to be a ceiling to what you can achieve and what kind of personalization you can achieve. So as the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You're going to start small. You're going to be like, okay, what is it that we want this tool to do for the company? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? How can we track success? What channel are we going to use for it? It's also dependent on the industry, the lifespan of the product, where you are in the organization. I think also like the technical maturity, if you will, and the data maturity in the organization. And how do you just start chipping away at it? Because what is super addictive and what is like really, really fulfilling is when you've got this long tail effect of something that you just know that it's going to work. Doesn't work week 1, doesn't work week 2, doesn't work in month 1. And then after 3 months, you're like, oh, wow, okay, cool. This journey is actually starting to, give us real results or give us real returns. And I think chipping away at it is the only way to get there, as long as you have that one clear goal and you have the customer at the center of all your decisions. It becomes quite easy to just chip away at it, and everyone is aligned on what needs to be done, would be my recommendation. But definitely get the driver in before you buy the Ferrari. I think what happens oftentimes is, even with me across my career, they would pull me in because they don't know what the hell to do. They've just signed this license and they're paying this price, and it's quite expensive. These tools aren't cheap. It's quite a pricey investment. And with the learner's license, you're trying to drive the Ferrari, and in like the Formula One, we can take that metaphor quite far. And if you just have the right driver in place, I think it's going to be a little bit more magical for the whole organization to be aligned. This is our strategy. This is the goal. This is what we want this tool to give us. And then technically, you already have the person in place to know what kind of skills to bring in and what kind of resources are required for executing all of the plans.
I think having backup drivers is a big part of this as well, right? I mean, people leave. People don't spend 20 years at a company anymore. So to almost protect that investment, companies need to be thinking about having what's the backseat driver, just hanging around, watching, waiting, checking things out, knowing how to take over if somebody's ill, away, leaves, all those kinds of things.
Sure, like you have to plug in redundancy. I think my favorite thing to do always is to automate myself. Whatever I find tedious, because I do get bored very easily. Whatever I find tedious, whatever I find repetitive, just automate it and move on to the next thing. That way, they'll hopefully still feel it when you leave. I hope, but that way, at least, you're not the single source of failure, because that would be heartbreaking if you're like fighting the good fight and you finally come a far way with life cycle journeys instead of dispatch, or like instead of spray and pray approach, we're going to personalize, instead of, batch sends, we're going to automate, and that kind of thing. And then eventually when one of the team members leave, or someone leaves, or the team decides to like adopt a new tool, whatever happens, then all of that just falls flat and they have to start from scratch. That's heartbreaking. That's such a waste of time. So no, for sure. I think that planning for the redundancy is a big one.
Amazing. Annalize van Deijl, thank you so much. Kelvin Jonck, thanks. So that is 15 minutes,
15 minutes.
ladies and gent. This
Wow.
flies by. Annalize, we truly appreciate your insights, your perspective. If you have never met Annalize, as I'm speaking to people listening now, if you've never met Annalize in real life, do it. She's an absolute firecracker and a breath of fresh air, and someone who you will learn a lot from. So thank you again for being our first guest on the new series of the
James. First of many.
Yeah.